terms, but they use their knowledge and advancement in finance and mobilization of resources to give us projects focusing on solutions on recycling, on energy, on adaptation, on dealing with pollution and decreasing emissions and biodiversity. We are fully committed to ensuring integrity in everything we do. That's why we welcome the new report, the Net Zero High-Level Expert Group, and its recommendations, that we are going to be working with the teams, including from the UN system, in order to advance the compliance with these new recommendations to make sure that we are dealing effectively with greenwashing. People brag too much about greenwashing, but I'm happy to say as well that there is some serious work in making finance available, because the Africans and developing economies do not just suffer from greenwashing, but they suffer from green exclusion, because there is higher cost of obtaining finance from the markets. We are pleased as well to see a report by the independent high-level expert group on climate finance commissioned by the president of COP26 and the president of COP27. It came out under the title of Finance for Action, and this is finance for climate action and finance for development action, and there is no conflict or trade-off or dichotomy between the actions that are required for climate or for development. There are important recommendations which we are operationalizing. Many of us were in the room when Prime Minister Motley challenged, Maya Motley, when she challenged the global financial system and trying to reform what should be reformed and to make sure that the multilateral finance system is fit for purpose. We heard as well Professor Sachs in the initiative with the UN on accelerating finance for the sustainable development, the accelerator. We have seen many proposals, including the one from Vera Songwe and Nick Stern that I just mentioned. So how to operationalize that? Let me just give you a proposal. And this proposal will be either accepted, which will be making many people happy, or rejected. But if it is rejected, we would really hope to see something better than this. So what's the proposal then? Given that I described, and this is my description, I don't commit the climate champions for that, the financial system in the world that is to be inefficient, insufficient, and unfair, what will make it different then? So we need to have 10 years grace period for all climate finance to be adopted by multilateral development banks. We need to add to that at least 20 years of repayment period. That will give us a total of 30-year maturity period, but we need to be charged a modest figure of 1%. That's why I call it the 1% for the 1.5 degrees proposal, because I'm not really seeing money flowing from the 100 billion. I'm seeing multiples of this figure as the gap of finance. And that proposal, if it is going to be adopted by the G7 and members of the G20 and the shareholders of the IFIs, it may make the transformation that would require. It's not going just to be the finance, it will be coupled with technical assistance and capacity development. So let me, very kind of you, thank you. So somebody may have done the math already and compared these figures to the costly finance that is available for developing economies. And the proposal here is to extend these terms not just to the low-income countries that need all the help and support, but we need that to be extended as well to low-middle-income countries. I was surprised to see that many, or to find people assuming that African countries are just a bunch of low-income countries. We have low-income countries aspiring to graduate from this category. We have low-middle-income countries that are trying to push finance further for the future. And I see my good friend Bugulu here give me a signal, which I'll respect in a few seconds, that my time is up. And actually, our time is up. It's not just me in my words, but it's basically our time is up in our fight against climate change, and that gets me into the very final words. And I hope from this gathering today, our good negotiators will listen, that we cannot afford some more complications on the way, on finance, on science, and pushing further the climate action. We need more finance for mitigation, we need decent finance for adaptation, and we need full recognition of the importance of the file on loss and damage, because we cannot do without. So, returning to my question, is climate action inefficient, insufficient, and unfair? So far it is. And while there is still much more to be done, I do take confidence what has been achieved in these last 2 weeks to turn the dial gives us hope. And the hope is not just from the leaders, but mainly from the youth and the children who have the right to live and to live in dignified life. I also take confidence that it is by collaborating with the parties, by bridging the work of non-state actors with governmental actions, we can definitely accelerate the progress on climate and all sustainable development goals. I hope then that then we can indeed make climate action efficient, sufficient, unfair, and fair, and fair. Still unfairness is dominating even my thinking, but let's be optimistic, and we see the fairness coming through better collaboration. Thank you so much. Right. Well, it gives me great pleasure to take a few seconds, not few hours or minutes, to introduce a friend and a colleague and a champion who spent a great deal of his life, dedication, efforts, tirelessly to deliver and help deliver what we have been achieving. And despite the fact that he has only minutes and hours left in his service to the world, being a climate champion, I'm putting a bet that he will be with us in different forms and hats in order to make sure that what he started and completed with many other champions before him is going to continue on the right path. Nigel Topping, our climate champion for Glasgow, I call him Nigel the Sixth because he put many benchmarks to be followed by the Nigels of the future, but I'm happy to give him the floor now. But before that, given that it will be, you can join that. Because that could be the last time that he will be seeing the teams represented here, the team of the climate champion. Can I ask them please to stand up to be seen, not just by Nigel. Nigel knows you all, but for all of those who are in this room to recognize your work. Thank you so much. Nigel, the floor is yours.
Shukran, Sadiqi Mahmoud. Ambassador Ayman, President Mary Robinson, Your Excellencies, friends. Last week I met the 7 young children that Mahmoud talked about, that the high-level champions supported in coming to COP27. And my friend Rama sat them all down and sat me in front of them, and he told them that I worked for them, that they were my boss, and he asked them to interview me. They asked great questions, of course, but what struck me most was Genia, a 12-year-old boy from the Torres Strait Islands, who looked me in the eye and said, "I don't want to be a refugee." So as we near the close of COP27 and I reflect on my 3 years in this role and our collective task and responsibility to ensure a just outcome for the vulnerable people of our world, for the young people of our world, and with Genia's words fresh in my memory, 3 things are top of mind: the importance of the truth, the sources of hope, and the power of radical collaboration. The truth is that 1.5 degrees C is not a target. The Earth system scientists remind us 1.5 degrees C is a limit. It's a limit anchored in physics, beyond which we unleash tipping points to hell. The truth is that non-state actors must be held accountable for delivering on their commitments, and that we increasingly have the tools to do that. The truth is that voluntary action alone, although welcomed, will not get us to where we need to be. So we must move quickly from a groundswell of voluntary momentum into the ground rules for the global economy. The truth is that we are far, far off track from where we need to be. But we must not give up hope. We must imagine the better times ahead that Mary describes and unleash the incredible ingenuity of humankind. What gives me hope is the action of thousands of communities, of businesses, of cities and states across the world. What gives me hope is the evidence of change that we see coming from these actions, and what gives me hope is the knowledge that this change can become transformational. We see a critical mass of non-state actors acting to keep 1.5 alive while working with the most vulnerable communities to adapt and build resilience. We see evidence of innovation on mitigation and adaptation everywhere, and when you put it together, it matters. And in this crucial year of taking stock on global action by countries, we know that commitments made by non-state actors will go way beyond what's currently accounted for in NDCs if delivered and scaled up at a sectoral level. What gives me hope is the knowledge that this is happening now. The past 5 years have confirmed the pattern of the transition to the net zero economy is following a kind of Moore's law of industrial transformation, where technology deployment goes up exponentially as costs come down in a predictable way, a way we've seen in such transformations historically many times. From renewables that are now the cheapest form of electricity almost everywhere in the world, to electric vehicle sales increasing over 60% each year, we're seeing this same story of exponential transformation emerging in sector after sector, from steel to shipping, from hydrogen to cement. But we don't see it in most of the reports because it's still under the radar. And we also see the Global South taking a lead, with launches here at COP27 of the African Just and Affordable Energy Transition Initiative, the Africa Food Systems Transformation Initiative, the African Net Zero Concrete Group, the African Carbon Markets Initiative, and momentum by the 6 African nations leading the Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance to sustainably industrialize Africa with plans that could add up to 12% to their current GDP. This is the breakthrough agenda, where countries and non-state actors representing over 50% of the world's economy are developing short-term plans and implementing them to drive demand, to unlock investment, to scale up production and bring down the cost of net zero technologies, to make the clean option the cheapest option everywhere in the world by 2030. And we're excited to see the same pragmatic engineering mindset being applied at this COP to adaptation and resilience, with the launch of the Sharm el-Sheikh Adaptation Agenda in partnership with the Egyptian COP27 presidency, all the Race to Resilience partners, the high-level champions in the Marrakesh Partnership. And all this momentum is driven by the power of radical collaboration, when governments at all levels, the private sector and communities unite around shared goals and shared values, and bring their unique skills and expertise and resources to problem solve together. This experience of exponential growth beating linear change needs to be firmly understood as part of the global stocktake next year. Let me give you 2 examples of the kind of radical collaboration we've seen in the last week. The Roof Over Our Head initiative, launched at the Resilience Hub by our dear friend Sheila Patel, a global grassroots women-led program. Mary launched it officially, But it's a women-led program that's harnessing the skills of those women in informal settlements and the engineers, builders, architects, and city governments to help millions living in informal settlements build climate-resilient homes. Or the mangrove breakthrough, bringing together NGOs, governments, industry, scientists, coastal communities to mobilize $4 billion by 2030 to conserve and revitalize coastal ecosystems, to protect 15 million hectares of mangroves and generate millions of jobs by 2030. As my good friend Mahmoud reminds us, these actions are not only good for climate, they are good for sustainable development. And we know that the net zero nature positive pathway is the development story of the 21st century. As this is the final time that I will address you as parties in this role, I want to thank you for the support in creating the High-Level Champions role, the Marrakesh Partnership, and the encouragement that you have given us to be bold and to innovate. I want to thank in particular the Egyptian presidency of COP27 and Mahmoud for our partnership to continue this spirit of boldness and innovation. And parties, I want to implore you, please look at the transformational potential of the Sharm el-Sheikh adaptation agenda and the breakthrough agenda. Take courage from the thousands of organizations in the Race to Zero and Race to Resilience and the Glasgow Finance Alliance for Net Zero. Take confidence from the amazing team supporting current and future champions and the fantastic family of Marrakesh partners, all working to implement the 5-year plan we presented and you welcomed last year to support you in reaching the goals of the Paris Agreement. Take heart and let's use the global stocktake to find opportunities to embed this momentum in bolder national plans. We can transform so much faster if we dare to imagine a better future and if you back your people, your businesses and your banks, your indigenous peoples and your cities, your engineers and your farmers, your children, your young people, your elders. They are amazing. Unleash them to deliver our moonshot, or perhaps I should say our Project Dandelion, not a moonshot to demonstrate one country's industrial prowess, but a Project Dandelion to ensure Janea does not become a refugee, and to ensure that we save everyone and everything we hold so dear. A moonshot or a Project Dandelion to ensure that indeed our best times are ahead of us. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much to both high-level champions. You really are truly champions of climate action, and we are very inspired and grateful for you. Now I'd like to invite another special guest. We have with us the Special Advisor to the United Nations Secretary General on Climate Action and Just Transition, Mr. Selwyn Hart. Join me in welcoming him on the stage.
Thank you. Really great to be here with all of you. And of course, first let me thank the Egyptian presidency for hosting this COP and for your excellent efforts at guiding parties and non-party stakeholders, of course, through this really complex process. I also wish to pay tribute to my two good friends, Nigel and Mahmoud, for their leadership at collaboration, at facilitating collaboration with non-state actors. I've been in this process for way too long, and I am delighted to see how COPs have evolved from simply being places where tired negotiators hammer out commas and sentences and paragraphs to a truly global mobilization effort to advance our global climate goals. And I'm so deeply encouraged by the level of ambition and energy in this room. It's great to see so many committed climate activists and leaders. At this COP, we've seen and heard from civil society, from young people, indigenous communities, and women's groups. Increased action by non-party stakeholders is the driving force to show governments that higher ambition is possible. And I wish to be blunt with you. We know that every indicator on climate is heading in the wrong direction. Global emissions are at their highest level in human history, and they continue to rise. We know that the 1.5 degree goal of the Paris Agreement, or that 1.5 degree limit, is in danger. We also know that as emissions continue to rise, impacts are getting worse and worse. And the unfortunate paradox of the global climate crisis is that if you are living in Asia, in South or Central America, in Africa, or on a small island developing state, you are 15 times more likely to die from a climate impact. So we're seeing global emissions rise, we're seeing impacts continue to increase, and therefore our challenge must be to bend the global emissions curve urgently, but simultaneously scale up support to protect those on the front lines of the climate crisis. Just ahead of this COP, UNEP issued its emissions gap report, which clearly shows that the world needs at least $340 billion a year by 2030 in order to meet the adaptation needs of the developing world. And right now we're mobilizing less than a tenth of that. Adaptation support should not be seen as charity, or addressing loss and damage should not be seen as a favor to the developing world. It's a moral obligation. So therefore, COP27 must lay the foundation for accelerated climate action. We need to get the world back on track. The good news is that we have the tools, both technological and financial, to achieve our climate goals. Renewable energy. Renewable energy. We need to jumpstart and accelerate a renewable energy revolution. But a renewable energy revolution that ensures fairness and justice to all. Africa, the continent that this COP is being held, has 60% of the world's solar capacity. Yet Africa attracts a mere 1% of investments in renewable energy. 1%, but with 60% of the world's capacity for solar. Let's compare Denmark and Algeria. Denmark has some of the worst potential for clean energy, for renewable energy. Algeria has 70 times more potential for renewable energy, yet Denmark has 7 times more installed solar capacity, 7 times more. The biggest obstacle to scaled up renewable energy investments in the developing world is the cost of capital. The cost of capital is at times 7 times higher in the developing world. I've said this before, Mahmoud, I'm sure you've heard it in multiple rooms. The world needs to throw the equivalent of the kitchen sink, the financial kitchen sink, at this challenge. We need to ensure that's the only way that the transition to net zero will be fair. Developing countries deserve a fair deal to accelerate the transition to a renewable energy future. Colleagues and friends, as Mahmoud indicated, a year ago, the Secretary General established a group of experts to look at the net zero commitments of non-state actors. One of the most welcome shifts that we've seen in recent years has been the number of non-state actors and private sector entities pledging to achieve net zero by 2050. A lot of that work is due to you, Nigel, and your fantastic team. However, not all net zero commitments or not all net zero pledges are created equally. I know that many of you in this room are committed and are doing the right thing. And it's unfair to you and those that are doing the right thing to be lumped together or categorized or lumped together with those who simply want to engage in public relations and greenwashing. It's unfair to you, extremely unfair to you. And this is why the Secretary General created this group, this expert group. And less than 1 week ago, they published a comprehensive report, which in our view represents the how-to guide to ensure credible accounting net zero pledges. I cannot do justice to the richness of the report in simply a few minutes, and I know my time is running out. I see the signals. But it includes very clear guidance on setting robust net zero emission targets aligned with the 1.5 degree pathways. It clearly states that net zero pledges must be in line with the IPCC scenarios limiting warming to 1.5 degrees with ambitious interim targets every 5 years. Pledges must be accompanied by detailed transition plans and concrete policies and actions supported by regular reporting. These plans must be publicly available. Critically, pledges must cover all scopes of greenhouse gas emissions. For businesses, this means all direct emissions. For financial institutions, means all finance activities, and for cities, it means all territorial emissions. So the message is clear to all those managing existing voluntary initiatives, including CEOs and mayors, governors. Abide by the standards and update your guidelines right away, and certainly no later by COP28. And Mahmoud, really delighted to hear your commitment to take this forward. So colleagues, every government, every business, every investor, every institution must step up. This is the only way we will achieve the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals while securing a future, a livable future for all. Colleagues, you have our continued support, the United Nations. We stand ready to help and to support this effort, and we look forward to continuing to work with all of you in the coming years. And finally, Nigel, all the best on your new endeavors. I'm sure you'll be making a splash wherever you go, and this will certainly not be the last COP that we will see you. And Mahmoud, again, thanks for your hard work. Ambassador Ayman, Egypt has delivered. You've truly delivered for Africa and for the developing world. I thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. And I couldn't agree more. I'd like to also quote what you, Excellency, said in terms of how acting now on climate change is a moral obligation, and we all need all hands on deck, and we need to step up. So thank you. And I'd like to give it back to Ambassador Ayman to lead the final section of the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Mnaya, so much. And I would like to thank, of course, the high-level champions for all the work that been done in the past 9 months when Egypt decided to design and format the Egyptian initiatives on a number of climate actions. And thanks for Nigel Topping and Dr. Mahmoud Muhyiddin for their involvement on those initiatives. Dear delegates, it's now my pleasure to open the floor for interventions from parties. The first on my core role, His Excellency Hyo Kim, Ambassador and Deputy Minister for Climate Change, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Korea, on behalf of the Environmental Integrity Group. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. First of all, I'd like to express my strong thanks to the Egyptian Presidency and UNFCCC Secretariat for organizing this very meaningful and inspiring session. And also, I'd like to extend my great appreciation to Her Excellency, Madame Mary Robinson, for moderating excellent panel discussion, which was a precious opportunity to listen to the views and voices of different non-state actor representatives. Mr. President and distinguished delegates, 1.5 degrees Celsius ambition and carbon neutrality by 2050 indeed needs whole of the society approach. We all know that it is very clear that parties only cannot achieve this goal, this demand. Therefore, every stakeholder must work together. That's why even at COP meetings, collaboration and partnership is a key agenda. In this global challenging but inevitable journey, we believe that the role of high-level champions is crucial and indispensable. Actually, high-level champions, they strongly contributed to strengthen and mainstreaming resilience. They mobilize the climate finances, and they accelerate immediate actions like race to net zero, and they raised public awareness, and they advocate people's participation to strong climate action. Therefore, I would like to take this opportunity to deliver strong appreciation to climate champions for their excellent work done for last years. We all need more and stronger engagement of non-state actors in the adventure of climate action. Parties' negotiation cannot be separated with the voices of non-state actors, and parties must reflect the voices, views, and demands of non-state actor representatives in a proper way to make official decisions and recommendations. We also believe that more frequent communication between parties and non-state actors must be ensured. Therefore, in that exercise, we expect bigger leadership and role of climate champions. High-level champions activities must be continued. And particularly next year, we have huge tasks in front of us, such as global stocktake, GCF replenishment, and many others. We need a lot of inputs, contributions, voices, from non-state actors. In that context, we expect bigger role and leadership by climate champions. Finally, climate champion, Mr. Nigel Topping. Thank you very much for your excellent work done for the last 2 years. And although your official work as high-level champion for climate action of the UN, high-level champion of the climate action will end soon, however, I don't think that your dedication, your contribution, your activities to enhance climate action around the globe will end. Your work will continue, and we expect your stronger, bigger, and more active leadership at every corner of the globe in the future. So thank you again, and I wish all the best for your next journey. Mr. President and distinguished delegates, this is a wonderful session for sharing views and excellent works done by non-state actors with parties, and we hope that this tradition will continue even stronger at next COPs as well. So thank you very much, and I wish all the best to the climate action champions. Thank you.
Excellency, thank you for your intervention. Now I would like to give the floor to Ms. Ligia Castro Dinonos, Climate Change Director, Ministry of Environment of Panama, on behalf of the ILAC. You have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente, distinguidos líderes, ministros y delegados presentes. Panamá tiene el honor de realizar esta intervención en nombre de los países ILAC. Agradecemos el espacio proporcionado y admiramos el liderazgo de los High Level Champions en impulsar iniciativas que aceleran la acción climática a nivel mundial. La crisis climática amenaza con desaparecer nuestra sociedad. Las decisiones que surjan de esta conferencia definirán si tendremos un futuro próspero y un planeta habitable. La región latinoamericana es altamente vulnerable al cambio climático y vinimos a COP27 con una sola misión: luchar por nuestra supervivencia y finalmente regresar a nuestros países con un claro rumbo hacia la implementación. Si bien la crisis climática afecta a todas las naciones y los países vulnerables no somos los principales responsables, somos conjuntamente responsables de solucionarla. Es por ello que desde ILAC avanzamos en una agenda ambiciosa, porque es lo correcto, porque entendemos que la solución a esta crisis requiere de todos. Con este espíritu acogemos con beneplácito la nueva campaña denominada Sharm el-Sheikh Adaptation Agenda, la meta de construir resiliencia climática para 4.000 millones de personas para 2030, así como los esfuerzos logrados a través de las campañas dirigidas por los High Level Champions, Race Zero, Race Resilience. Reconocemos los avances logrados con la visión a 5 años para la Alianza Marrakech para la Acción Climática Mundial, que viene logrando, entre otros aspectos, mejorar los mecanismos de enlace y participación con los actores estatales. Estamos seguros que con ella se acelerará la acción transformativa de nuestros países, regiones, ciudades, empresas, inversionistas y la sociedad civil, para que la mitigación y sobre todo para que la adaptación a los peligros climáticos agudos que enfrentan las comunidades vulnerables, que permitan avanzar concretos y palpables. Para nuestros países, la agenda de acción es fundamental para aumentar la ambición y alinear el trabajo en la consecución de los objetivos a largo plazo del Acuerdo de París. En este contexto, su implementación efectiva debe significar que todas las partes interesadas alineen sus planes de trabajo y planes de inversión a corto, mediano y largo plazo, y así catalizar acciones a lo largo del proceso. Por este motivo, invitamos a los High Level Champions a intensificar su trabajo en la región de América Latina, especialmente en los países ILAC, ya que confiamos en que los objetivos sectoriales, los 2030 Breakthroughs, están alineados a un enfoque de transformación del sistema global con un enfoque integral y holístico, y son un punto importante para la agenda de acción que brinda una señal clara a las partes, actores no estatales y la Secretaría a cómo trabajaremos en conjunto para cumplir efectivamente con los objetivos a largo plazo del Acuerdo de París. Para nuestra región, abordar el problema mundial del cambio climático y la consecución del objetivo global de 1.5 grados y de neutralidad de carbono en el marco del Acuerdo de París sigue y seguirá siendo una prioridad urgente, que requiere la mayor ambición y el mayor compromiso posible hacia la transformación por parte de los gobiernos a nivel nacional, subnacional y local, en estrecha coordinación con el sector privado y los agentes no estatales. Los aquí presentes estamos en una posición privilegiada y tenemos una responsabilidad con el planeta. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much for your intervention. Now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Yushi Horo, Director of International Cooperation, Japan. Sir, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. First, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to UNFCCC Climate Champions for organizing this event focusing on non-state actors. I would like to say a few words from national government perspective, working closely with subnational government. Despite current climate and energy crisis, losing momentum on the path to carbon neutrality is not an option. The latest IPCC report highlighted that cities account for approximately 70% of global GHG emissions. Cities are standing at the front line of concrete actions against climate change and towards decarbonization. The Glasgow Climate Pact, adopted at COP26 last year, clearly stated local governments play an important role in achieving temperature goal of the Paris Agreement. Japan strongly believes local governments are one of the most important actors. We have been working with local governments in the transition towards carbon neutral cities while revitalizing local economy and well-being. As a concrete step, Japan will designate 100 or more decarbonization leading areas, which strive to realize carbon neutrality by 2030, 20 years ahead of national target year of 2050. Demonstrated best practices in these areas are expected to be replicated across the country and beyond the border through international city-to-city collaboration. Japan will strengthen comprehensive collaboration with stakeholders, both domestically and internationally, to meet its own decarbonization targets while also contributing to its partners in achieving their targets. The decarbonization of subnationals is a significant challenge for Japan and the world, but we are determined to make it happen. and show our leading models to the world in this critical decade. In order to achieve it, I hope to expand multi-level cooperation across the world. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you for your intervention. Now I give the floor to Ms. Milagros Sandoval, Director of Climate Change and Desertification, Ministry of Environment of Peru. Milagros, you have the floor.
Gracias. Milagros se disculpa, no ha podido estar acá en la reunión, pero a nombre de Perú queremos destacar y agradecer el arduo y constante esfuerzo de los campeones del alto nivel para la acción climática, a representantes de la Presidencia del Reino Unido y representantes de la Presidencia de Egipto, bajo cuyo liderazgo se ha logrado una aceleración excepcional en la participación e incremento de la ambición y acción de los actores no estatales para construir una sociedad resiliente y baja en carbono al 2050. Este bienvenido liderazgo se construye sobre la base de iniciativas previas, en particular a partir de la Agenda de la Acción Lima-París, iniciativa conjunta de las presidencias peruana y francesas de la COP, lanzada en la COP20 en Perú, que destacó y movilizó la acción de empresas y otros actores no estatales en la reducción de emisiones de carbono y sociedades más resilientes. Confiamos que las campañas Race to Zero y Race to Resilience seguirán movilizando cada vez más la creciente comunidad de actores no estatales, tanto de ciudades, regiones y actores de la sociedad civil y empresas. En este contexto queremos resaltar el liderazgo conjunto de la presidencia de la COP27 de Egipto y los campeones, al haber lanzado en esta COP el Sharm el Sheikh Adaptation Agenda, que permitirá acelerar la acción de actores estatales y no estatales hacia la COP28. Esta COP ha demostrado que este ecosistema de actores no estatales está tomando liderazgo cada vez más creciente e importante. E iniciativas como el Resilience Hub, apoyado por el gobierno peruano, es una muestra de ellos. Con ello, Presidents, damos nuestro pleno respaldo al continuo y valioso trabajo de los campeones a través de la visión de 5 años para la Alianza de Marrakech para la Acción Climática, y cuenten con nosotros en nuestro continuo apoyo en su implementación en los años que vienen. Juntos por la implementación. Gracias.
Thank you for your intervention. Now I would like to give the floor to Ms. Janet Trogan, the United Kingdom COP26 Regional Ambassador for Africa and the Middle East. Ms. Janet, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, colleagues, I'm delighted to attend this event and make this intervention today to acknowledge the inspiring work of the high-level champions and the Marrakesh Partnership. What has been achieved through the global climate agenda is driving the ambition loop between parties and non-party stakeholders to strengthen and accelerate action across the pillars of the Paris Agreement. And the work of the Marrakesh Partnership is key to delivering the transformation we need across all sectors of our economies. The UK is pleased to have witnessed and played a part in the progress across this agenda over the last 3 years. The Race to Zero, the Race to Resilience, and the Glasgow Finance Alliance for Net Zero, launched during the UK's presidency, have driven a massive increase in the ambition and accountability of non-state actors in this process. We were delighted to collaborate with you last year on the Breakthrough Agenda, and we commend your continued efforts since COP26, as you have worked alongside the International Energy Agency and the International Renewable Energy Agency to move the work forward under this agenda. In particular, we welcome the announcements of the adaptation and resilience breakthroughs this year, as well as your continued work on finance through innovative regional fora, as well as the development of work under GFANZ. We're very grateful for the support provided to non-party stakeholders to enable their effective participation in the global stocktake events taking place this year and next, in response to the mandate you received in the Glasgow Climate Pact. We want to reiterate our support for the improved Marrakesh Partnership published by the high-level champions last year and welcomed by parties at COP26. The 5-year plan has given the high-level champions, the Marrakesh Partnership and the broader climate action agenda very clear direction and a solid foundation to continue this transformational work. To conclude, we commend the positive collaboration between the UK and Egypt high-level champions this year. We look forward to seeing how this agenda progresses through 2022 and 2023 under the Egyptian and the incoming UAE presidencies, and encourage them to continue to drive the ambition loop further and faster. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your intervention. Now I give the floor to Ms. Francesca Osvaldo, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Chile. Ms. Francesca, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished leaders, ministers, and delegates present. Chile would like to highlight and thank the hard and constant effort of the high-level champions, Nigel Tobin, representative of the UK President, and Mahmoud Mohiddin, representative of the Egyptian President, under whose leaderships and exponential accelerations has been achieving the participation, increased ambition, and action on non-state actors in reducing greenhouse gas emissions towards carbon neutrality and increasing adaptive capacity and resilience to the adverse effect of climate change. We consider it key to capitalize on the work done in recent years through the campaigns led by the high-level champions, Race to Zero and Race to Resilience, and we welcome the launch of the Sharm el-Sheikh Adaptation Agenda that will set the sectoral targets to reach the 4 billion people protected goal. We cannot stop at fancy speeches and empty words. We need to move towards strong and effective climate action. Climate change is an issue that involves us all as humanity, and it is the combined actions of all of us and all of the various sectors of our multiple societies that will give us a better world. This is why the work done by the high-level champions is so crucial and allow us to keep the flame of the 1.5 degrees ambition goal alive. Thank you.
Thank you for your intervention. Since I see no other parties would like to take the floor, we will continue the proceedings with the statements of the observers. I have on the top of my list Mr. Frank Coney, Mayor of City of Des Moines, USA, President of ICLEI, on behalf of the local governments and municipal authorities. Mr. Frank, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues in the Global Climate Action Agenda, I want to thank all the previous speakers for their strong interventions this evening. I serve as president of ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, which serves as the local focal organization of the local governments and municipal authorities constituency to the UNFCCC. We, as the LGMA, are happy to know that the agenda, which is focusing on action, is moving forward in an inclusive process. It is now time for parties to make a bridge and process through partnership with non-state actors. By working with cities and regions, the action agenda can leverage the full power of multi-level action as an accelerating force for the second phase of the Paris Agreement. This new phase of Paris is implementation, and the local level is where implementation occurs. Only by ensuring that all levels of government collaborate can the action agenda reach its full potential. Thank you to the GCA for raising the bar. We now have clear signs of momentum, the first ministerial to bring the climate community together with the urban community shows that we can share one unifying vision. With this motivation, we go forward from here by opening a global climate stocktake that fully incorporates local level input. ICLEI and the LGMA embark into 2023 under the banner of Stocktake 4 Climate Emergency and will seek to engage more than 100 nations to host a stocktaking event in collaboration with their local and regional governments. This exercise sets a vision for not only where we are, but where we need to go that is equitable and just. Thank you again to the GCA, and let's together maintain our motivation and momentum from here on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Because we have restriction in time, and invite observers to submit their written statements to the Secretariat. Now on the closing remarks, let me on behalf of His Excellency Minister Sameh Shukri, the COP President, to deliver it. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, I would like to thank party and non-party actors and our speakers for joining us today in the Global Climate Action high-level event, and for such insightful and inspiring discussions. Every day counts. We need to upscale actions from all stakeholders and to translate these actions into results on the ground. Then translate these results into tangible and impactful outcomes. It takes two to the success of global climate action: state and non-state actors. There is no room for solo players. Responsibility is shared, and hence accountability is shared as well. The unity of purpose reflected in the UNFCCC and in the Paris Agreement is the main driving force for us all in our joint journey to realize on the ground the slogan of COP27, Together for Implementation. By these remarks, I declare our meeting is closed, and I would like personally to thank Mr. Nigel Topping for his hard work, and of course we expect that you continue combating the climate change from your new position. Thank you, sir.